Right, a lot has been happening over the last month, and I'm going to be talking probably all week and next week about the president's speech because he continues to give portions of that speech as he is on the campaign trail. It was a political speech, and I didn't even get into the fact that he had two Marines standing behind him. And as a Marine veteran, and I hate the fact, I find it deplorable that he would use the military as a prop for this political speech that attacks half of America. It was very subtle, but what he was communicating there was, I have the military behind me, backing me up. Don't get in my way. And I think a key part of that speech, as I listened to it and read it, was that this is about voter suppression. All right, I want to play one of the clips, another clip before I bring in my next guest. Clip number 7.
MAGA Republicans look at America and see carnage and darkness and despair. They spread fear and lies. Lies told for profit and power.
Again, you'll hear me say this a lot, but projection, they're the ones that were spreading fear with the whole coronavirus. Fear, because they can control us with fear. So they're projecting what they're doing onto Republicans. But this was about, in part, voter suppression. Because all this stuff about mega Republicans and, basically marginalizing, demonizing anyone who would vote conservative. And so what do people do? They back up. They don't vote. Well, that's the last thing you need to do. In fact, we need to redouble our efforts when it comes to voter registration, voter education, and voter turnout. I mean, we need, as I mentioned earlier, a blitz at the polls in November to overwhelm the shenanigans that we know they're going to be engaged in. And joining me now to talk a little bit more about this, Brent Keilen, Vice President of FRC Action. Brent, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Tony. Good to be with you.
So it's clear that this term mega Republicans has been poll tested. They've probably done focus groups because we've seen Schumer use this for quite some time now. Do you see this the same way, that there's an effort here to try to suppress conservative engagement in the election?
I think undoubtedly, Tony. I think it's on one hand trying to suppress one base and also trying to motivate the other base. And the fact that they're taking this speech on the road, if you will, this has become a recurring theme, tells us this is something we are going to be hearing a lot of over the next 2 months.
So how should we respond to this?
Tony, this is such an important election for us to be engaged in. You can't be intimidated. We have got to get out and vote. We could go through, so many different points, but I cannot think of an election where there have been this many levels of races on the ballot that are this important. We talk about the Senate being split 50-50. We talk about just 6 votes in the U.S. House deciding the majority, but then you look at these state races, and now with the post Roe v. Wade environment, these legislatures and governors are having a huge opportunity to advance pro-life legislation. You look at school boards, you look at secretaries of state with the election integrity issue surfacing. Every single level is high stakes, and we absolutely can't take the bait and be intimidated. Yeah. We cannot sit this one out. It's too important.
Nor can we kind of rest on the success of our efforts over the last 49 years that led to the Dobbs case. In fact, I mentioned this earlier today. I was thinking about it this morning. It's kind of like the D-Day, the huge success, largest in amphibious assault in the history of warfare, put the Germans on their heels. But then, within just a couple of months, the Germans had regrouped and had put the Allied forces on their heels, and the Battle of the Bulge ensued. And I think this is very much the same. I think we cannot be overconfident here that we've won this major effort when it came to the sanctity of human life. Yes, it's been years in the making. Yes, a lot has gone into that, as we've talked about, but the work is far from over. We need to be registering people to vote in our churches.
Yes.
We need to be educating them what's on the ballot and turning them out. Now, I know a lot of questions I got during the break as I was traveling, speaking different places. All right, what's the congressional elections look like going into the fall?
Tony, I think the Senate is going to be close. In my opinion, there's probably 5 key U.S. Senate races that are toss-up right now. That's going to be very, very important if you're in one of those states. But at the U.S. House level, also important. Most experts, most pundits are still predicting that the GOP will take the House. I'm seeing guesses anywhere between 20 to upper 30s in terms of number of seats. But Tony, also anything can happen. Between now and that first week in November, no foregone conclusions.
Absolutely right.
There's just so much. You can't take anything for granted right now.
But what we can control is our own engagement in the process.
That's right.
We can be registered, and we can be voting. We can be informed first, and then we can vote. I mean, as Americans, I said this before, I'll say it again. As Americans, we have a right to vote, but I believe as Christians, we have a responsibility
That's right.
to vote. What resources do we have available to help in that process of voter registration and voter education?
If you go to our website, frcaction.org, there's a couple of key resources you can find there. Just go to voter resources. Number one, you'll find voter guides. So we have voter guides for all 50 states, at least at the federal level. If it's not out for the general election in your state, it will be. So you can find that there. We're working in the iVoter Guide Coalition for that. Also, Tony, you mentioned the importance of voter registration. It's kind of astounding when you realize how many millions of people, millions of Christians still are not even registered. They can't even participate in the process. So go there. There's a voter registration info there as well for your state. You can figure out that process for your state, what that looks like.
And folks, I would encourage you, ask your pastor if you can do a voter registration drive at your church. We've got resources available for you to do that at your church as well, and there's family policy councils and others that can help you with that. But inquire, ask your pastor if you can do a voter registration. Brent, I know we're going to be talking a lot over the next couple of months, so always great to see you.
You too, Tony. Thanks.